Understanding the law is the first step to fighting back. Here's what a federal appeals court just decided, and what it means for your family. Two major developments out of Washington are affecting immigrant communities right now. The first involves your tax records. The second involves your bank account. Both are still unfolding, and you need to know where things stand today. On February 25, 2026, a three-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit declined to block the IRS from sharing certain taxpayer information with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The ruling does not end the underlying lawsuit. It simply means that for now, data sharing can continue while the legal fight goes on. Here is what the agreement actually covers. USCIS submits names and addresses of individuals suspected of being in the country without legal status to the IRS. The IRS then cross-references those names against its own tax records. The court said this specific information, names and addresses, does not qualify as protected taxpayer return information under Section 6103 of the Internal Revenue Code, which is the federal statute that governs tax privacy. The agreement was signed in April 2025 by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Shortly after it was announced, then-acting IRS Commissioner Melanie Krause resigned in protest. Court filings later revealed that USCIS had submitted roughly 1.28 million names to the IRS. The agency was able to verify only about 47,000 of them. For fewer than 5% of those, the IRS provided additional address information, and some of that sharing may have exceeded what the agreement permitted. The court was unanimous. Senior Judge Harry T. Edwards wrote the opinion, joined by Chief Judge Sri Srinivasan and Judge Patricia Millett. All three were appointed by Democratic presidents. The panel ruled that immigrant rights groups had not met the high legal bar required to halt the policy, while litigation continues. The groups challenging the agreement, including Centro de Trabajadores Unidos, Somos un Pueblo Unido, and others, argued that the data sharing violates the privacy protections built into federal tax law. Their position is that using tax data for immigration enforcement fundamentally undermines the system. Millions of undocumented immigrants file taxes each year, using an individual taxpayer identification number, known as an ITIN. They pay into Social Security and Medicare, programs they are ineligible to access. Advocates warn that families learning the IRS may share their information with ICE will pull back from filing, which ultimately harms tax compliance and federal revenue for everyone. This ruling is not the final word. The underlying lawsuit continues. A federal judge in Massachusetts issued a separate ruling earlier in 2026, blocking IC from using IRS data in enforcement efforts. A different federal judge found the agreement likely unlawful in November 2025. The legal landscape is fragmented. The D.C. Circuit ruled only on whether to pause the policy, not on whether the policy is ultimately legal. That question remains open. What does this mean practically for immigrant families? If you have filed taxes using an ITIN, the court's ruling means the IRS can share your name and address with ICE if ICE submits a valid request under a specific criminal investigation provision. This does not mean your full tax return, your income, deductions, or financial details is being shared. The law prohibits that. What is now permitted is address verification tied to names ICE already possesses. The second development concerns your bank account. As of this recording, no executive order has been signed. But the Trump administration is actively considering a measure that would require banks to collect and verify citizenship information from both new and existing customers. Reports from the Wall Street Journal, CNN, and Bloomberg confirmed last week that Treasury Department officials have discussed this possibility. One option under review would require customers to produce a passport or similar citizenship document to open or keep a bank account. Real ID cards, which many people carry, would not qualify. They verify identity, not citizenship status. Banks have raised serious alarms. Industry representatives describe the proposal as operationally unworkable. Legal experts note that an executive order alone likely could not implement this change. It would require going through the Administrative Procedure Act, a process that typically takes a year or more. Congress would need to act for a permanent rule change. The banking industry is pushing back, both publicly and privately, and has questioned the legal basis for the proposal. Advocacy groups are tracking this closely. The National Consumer Law Center and other organizations have noted that roughly half of all Americans do not have a valid passport, meaning a citizenship verification requirement would affect far more people than just undocumented immigrants. So where does this leave families right now? On the IRS question, The legal fight is far from over. If you have been filing taxes and are concerned, speak with an immigration attorney and a tax professional separately, privately, about your individual situation. Filing taxes has historically demonstrated community ties, and that has not changed because of one appellate ruling. But the environment has changed, and you deserve to make informed decisions. On the bank account question, watch for official announcements. Do not act on rumors. If a formal order or regulation is issued, Bloodlines will break it down for you. What you can do right now is gather copies of identity documents you already have: passports, consular IDs, ITINs, social security cards. Organize them, keep them accessible, document what you have. Multiple federal agencies are being asked to play roles in immigration enforcement that are historically unprecedented. Courts are being asked to draw lines. Some are drawing them, and some are declining. This will continue. Stay informed and know your rights. Record today, protect tomorrow.